Don't usually make videos that are not on the weekend, but I thought I had some time today, so I thought I would throw my 2 cents in on a video that I saw recently from a young YouTuber, a solid YouTuber I would recommend watching, especially if you're moving to Japan, and that is Young James. So I got onto his channel. I guess it was recommended to me because I was looking for Japan content because I'm moving there in almost exactly a month. And there's 2 reasons I like to follow this guy. Is number one, he's smart, he has good points, and he kind of reminds me, I think he's the same age as I was when I moved to Taiwan. And so he talks about stuff I used to think about, you know, like approaching, working on health, trying to do something online as far as money making is concerned. And the second reason is, you know, he's ahead of me as far as like living in Japan goes, learning Japanese, so he has some like good information. But one video that he talked about was this idea of people out there projecting onto you things that you can and can't do just because of their own fears. So he had this experience where he was working in a restaurant, and I believe it was the bartender who was talking to him, I guess condescendingly, saying like, hey man, going to Japan is not the answer, you're never gonna make it there, you're gonna be a laughing stock, people are gonna hate you, da 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 da. And I remember I had a similar experience when I was living in New Zealand, and a friend of mine, I was like, I'm gonna move to Taiwan with this girl, and because of his own interests, I think, and his own projections, he said similar stuff to me, like, you're way too introverted to make friends and build a social circle from scratch. You're not gonna make it. It's gonna be too weird. People are speaking a different language. You're not gonna put yourself out there. I know what you're like, da 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 da. If anything, that motivated me even more. And, you know, I've been here since. I have a lot of friends. I have multiple friendship circles. I date a lot. Everything's good. Better than it would have been, I think, if I would have stayed there. Ultimately, what you're gonna find with people, whenever you're kind of breaking the mold and putting yourself out there, you're gonna realize that a lot of people are gonna be like crabs in a bucket. And crabs in a bucket, you know, they follow that expression, misery loves company. But it's actually a good way to screen people in your life. It's a good way to screen friends. I remember Jordan Peterson was talking about the way he defined a friend. And the way he defined it was, a friend will be your biggest fan when things are going good, and they'll sit and listen to you and be there and suffer with you when things are going bad. And it's that simple. If you get anything else from your friends when things are going good or bad, you know, hate, jealousy, you know, there should be some flags raised in your mind about, you know, whether that's someone you want in your life or not. And there's 2 big things that you need to realize about people and their psychology whenever you hear someone, you know, projecting their fears onto you. So the first one is just that it's a projection of their own fears. When you say, for example, oh, I'm gonna move to Japan and I don't know anyone, but I think, you know, I'll be able to make friends and learn the language, they think of that from their own perspective. They think about it as if they were in your shoes. So what they're actually projecting onto you is what they fear would happen to them. So it's kind of like this really crazy way of caring about you while also thinking about themselves and not caring about you kind of at the same time. The second thing you need to realize that sort of tied into the first part is that it's really their ego protecting itself in a kind of roundabout way. And what do I mean by that? Well, one thing you'll notice about most people is whenever things don't go their way, or whenever, you know, they're faced with some kind of rejection or ridicule in relationships or whatever, you'll notice that they'll often look to the external. Because when you face ridicule and, you know, rejection or whatever, it's a shot at the ego. It's damage to the ego. So the ego needs to go into damage control, and it goes into damage control. The reflex is to blame outside external sources as the reason you're feeling the way you feel. Because if you blamed yourself, that's even more painful. If you have to look within, if you have to look to the shadow, as for those who follow Carl Jung, that's painful. It's painful to face that. And the mind does not like pain, so it avoids it by looking to the external and looking to what it can blame and projecting. So let's say a guy goes to Japan, right? And he's like really excited about it. He's always loved anime his whole life. He's got the fetish. He loves Japan, blah, blah, blah. He's really pumped up. He goes there. He gets denied at the first bar he goes to. He can't get any dates. His Bumble has 0 matches. He tries to talk to people and make friends. Nobody wants to be friends with him, or it's extremely difficult. And he comes back home and he's like, Japan's shit. The culture's too weird. The girls are frigid. You know, the bars are racist. Everyone's xenophobic. Everybody hates foreigners over there. You can see the pattern of like the external pointing, right? It's never like, oh, it's me. Like smart people are like that. Smart people are almost too self-blaming. They'll be like, oh, it's me. Damn, I should have gone over there with Japanese. Damn, I knew I should have probably, you know, dappered up my wardrobe a little bit before I went there. Or, you know, yeah, I probably shouldn't have a beard since every Japanese woman says they hate facial hair. But I did it I have a beard anyway. You know, all this kind of stuff. Now, the truth is, sure, culture does play a part. But there are parts you can control. And you should really just, as much as possible, be stacking your strengths or maxing out what you do have, like looks maxing. I was watching this video the other day on YouTube, and it was one of these like guy on the streets, you know, and he's like interviewing foreigners about dating or something like this. And he interviews these 4 dudes and they're like, what is your dating like in Japan? And he's like, oh, it's really tough. Oh, they don't really like foreigners here. Oh, it's just 1% of women like foreigners here. Or, you know, oh, I've met a bunch of girls and they always ghost me over text and all this kind of stuff. And it's because the culture's weird, or it's because, you know, they're weird, or because I'm a foreigner, they can't handle it, or there's a cultural difference. And I noticed the same thing again. It's the external thing. It's the pointing at the external. You know, 100%. Not one of them at any moment said, well, I kind of understand now that there is some parts of myself that I should have known that they wouldn't like. And I didn't try to think about that and collaborate at all. So that's probably a big part as to why, you know, my dates always go bad. And personally, not to be mean, the whole time I was watching these guys get interviewed, I was thinking, they all look like scrubs. One guy had messy ass hair. One guy had this huge beard. One guy, all of them dressed like shit. One guy had like cargo 3/4 pants on and a fucking Zelda t-shirt or something childish, right? I think one dude even had a bandana wrapped around his wrist, right? Like, don't walk around dressed like a 13-year-old complaining that the reason women don't like you is because of their culture. So they looked like shit. They weren't even trying to collaborate in any kind of way or like stacking their strengths at all. And the classic, which is the first thing I noticed, which was what they were like blaming outwardly in conjunction with that, which means they're just sort of refusing to look inward, refusing to show any sense of humility as to why things weren't going their way. And tying it back to people who, you know, are telling you what you can and can't achieve. You know, let's keep in context of, let's say you're going to Japan or anywhere in Asia. You got to realize that these people are probably going to have these same glaring errors that they might also be completely oblivious to. Meanwhile, they're just happily and arrogantly sitting there on their keyboard going, oh, you're never going to make it because I didn't make it. So therefore, it's impossible for anyone to make it. Now, why are they doing that? Again, you got to look to the ego. Their ego is in damage control. So what happens to their ego if they don't make it and you do make it? If they have a shit time, but you have an amazing time. If they get 0 dates and you've got 3 dates a week, your success shines a glaring light on their inadequacy. So the ego they have to stop you from going in case that happens. In case you have the best time ever, they have to convince you not to go. Do you see how the ego kind of sneaks its way into people's personalities and makes them do things? You know? What do they say? The brain is like an iceberg and 90% is underwater. That's Sigmund Freud. It's true. People think they're in complete control of who they are and how their brain works, but it's not. There are different parts of your brain, like the ego, sneaking its way in or as Jung says, the shadow sneaking its way into yours and other people's personality and making them do things in order to maintain that ego protection. And by you succeeding where they have failed, it's like an objective truth is just shining, right? Their ego has nowhere to hide. So I'll give you another example. So I'm heading to Japan in a month. So a couple of my friends went there a week ago to party or whatever. So I'm like, I'm gonna go in a month, so I'm not gonna go. And one of the guys in particular the whole time was like, man, it's a desert here, it's a wasteland, you're not gonna get anywhere, it's gonna be the worst 3 months of your life, you know, make sure you get the most out of Taipei while you're there, because you're not gonna have a day for 3 months. Going out alone is not even gonna be good here. Every bar we've been to is a wasteland, it's so barren, la 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 la. Meanwhile, I'm thinking again, external blame. The whole time I was thinking, hold on a second, there's 5 of you. There's 5 dudes. That's horrible numbers to go out on the pull, even in a Western country. 5 dudes in a bar, probably drunk, probably loud as fuck, dressed up, I believe, as the Ghostbusters. And how are you gonna point to the external when you are literally dressed up as, I'm not talking about the Halloween costume, but you're going out as exactly the kind of guy girls don't want to be seen with or hanging out with or seen leaving with. 5 white dudes who are drunk and loud. So sometimes pointing to the external, it can be as ridiculous as that. So whenever anyone's talking like this, these are some kind of signs to look out for. And the thing you need to ask yourself is, what does this person's experience have at all to do with me? I mean, the worst ones are the people on Reddit. So, you know, I've been guilty of this. You like search online, what's it like in Japan? What's it like dating in Japan? Which city is better for this and that? And you'll get people like, oh, don't come here. You know, oh, don't come here, it's a wasteland. Again, it's barren. Again, pointing to the external. And a lot of people will take that on board and take that to heart and just run with that. But me, and what you should do is think, who's that person behind that keyboard typing away all this negative shit? Is it some neckbeard dude in Bumblefuck, Utah, somewhere in his mom's basement? Is it a fat dude with a Pokemon headband and fucking, you know, he sleeps with one of those hentai pillows? You have no idea who that person is, especially on Reddit. At least when someone's projecting onto you in person, you can look them up and down and make your own decisions. But in a non on Reddit, the worst advice to follow. The chances are most of these guys are probably gonna have glaring errors. They talk like they've done the perfect speed run, or like, you know, what's a sport where you have to do like, you're rated on performance, you know, like gymnastics or something, or like a dive. They act like they've done the perfect run, you know, the perfect performance, the 10 out of 10, you know, routine. But the truth is they probably have glaring errors, like the guy getting interviewed on the street. Glaring errors, stacking weaknesses that they're not even aware of. And then they come around and they've got the balls to tell you that you're not gonna make it, that you're not gonna do. I did the perfect run in Japan, man, and I got nothing. So, you know, I was dappered up, I was pimping, I speak the language perfectly, I did the perfect speed run, and I got nothing, so you're not gonna make it. That's the way this advice is expressed. It's ridiculous. But ultimately, the thing you have to realize at the end of the day is this is all ego and it's all projection. So if you're thinking about going somewhere, traveling somewhere, getting yourself out there, don't let their bullshit be the reason that you don't do that. Don't let their bullshit be the reason that later down the line when you're really old, don't let their bullshit be the reason that you have huge, massive regret that you didn't do something. And as far as going to another country goes, you know, stack what you do have in order to make up for what you don't. So if you're going to another country, if you're going to Japan or whatever, and you don't speak any of the language, then at least stack how you look, right? I've done this experiment before, and it's kind of cheesy, but I would try doing it if you don't really believe what I'm saying. Put on your Zelda t-shirt and your cargo pants and your New Balance 407s or whatever, and your scruffy hair and your beard, and go sit in a bar and see how people treat you and talk to you. and then get dappered up. Wear a black collared shirt with maybe a sweater over it, or even a jacket, even a leather jacket, dark pants, and nice shoes. Clean up your facial hair and your hair, and then tell me if people do or don't treat you differently. Tell me if more people approach and try to talk to you. See, that is stacking what you do have, okay? Because in some countries, you're not gonna have the language, you're not gonna have much. So if you can do it physically, that's gonna make all the difference. But having said all this, Japan might be a different animal. It might be a different kettle of fish, as they say. So ultimately, I will find out in exactly 30 days how bad it really is. And I can't wait to check it out and share my experiences as well. So I just thought I'd make this video today, have some free time. So if you have any questions, drop them below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.